Gentlemen, let's start the press conference of the Central Electoral Commission to discuss yesterday's second round of the presidential elections and its results. There are over 2.4 million voters on the electoral roll. They could cast their votes in 1,895 polling stations. Voters were also able to vote in 52 embassies and consular offices of the Republic of Lithuania and 9 additional polling stations in the areas populated with large Lithuanian communities. There were almost 15,000 members of the commission. The election was observed by more than 2,000 election observers. Since Tuesday, 257,854 voters voted in early voting. The first days of early voting were marked by increased turnout. In total, 18.03% of all voters voted early in Lithuania, which is about 0.5% less than in the first round, and 0.25% more than in the second round in 2019. Nearly 150,000 voters voted in municipal buildings and additional polling stations. 14.5 thousand voters voted in hospitals and social care institutions. In total, more than 1,181,000 voters cast their votes. And the total turnout was 49.15%. This is 10% less than in the first round and 4% less than in the second round in 2019. It should be noted that this is already the 8th presidential election in Lithuania. No second round was required twice. Twice the turnout in the second round was higher than in the first one in 1997 and 2004, and it is the 4th time when the turnout in the second round is lower. Most voters cast their ballots between 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and with more than 3% of voters voting per hour. And the total turnout of these 5 hours was over 19%. During the busiest hours between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., the total turnout is just under 13%. The results of the election were clear by midnight. The last polling stations and foreign votes were received by 1 a.m., and we're still waiting for the voting from abroad results, as envelopes with ballot papers had to be sent to the embassy by yesterday and have to reach the embassies by Friday. The results are expected to be confirmed on Saturday. Currently, Gitanas Nausėda received 74.44% of voters, while Šimonytė received 24.06% of votes. Almost 18,000 ballots were invalid. Approximately 124,000 voters voted in another polling stations. We know a case when a couple which married yesterday in the Curonian Spit voted together with their wedding guests in Preilą and Nida. The most active voters were in Neringa, almost 62%, Birštonas almost 59%, and Palanga almost 59%. Only in Neringa the turnout was slightly higher compared to the first round. It can be linked with the opportunity to vote at any polling station and the weather being extremely nice. In Visaginas the turnout is down by 14%. Three districts had the turnover over by 100%. One of those was Labanauras district with 217 voters on electoral roll.
In Šiauliai district, there were 155 in total voting. Out of those, and one polling station, that was Vilnius polling station in Palanga, which has 105,044 voters, and 1,094 of them voted because almost 900 of voters came to that polling station and 132 left. The Commission received up to 70 reports, questions, and queries. So, unfortunately, yesterday we could only vote in the embassy and in the special polling stations in embassies, and not elsewhere. A few of the voters indicated they did not receive a copy of the Constitution when voting for the first time. There was also alleged violations of outdoor advertising or campaigning in social networks. And posts which were posted on Saturday that what was not considered as a violation. Some situations were managed right away. The other situations will have to be further investigated. We have received several reports about drunk voters and one drunk observer of the elections, and his observer certificate was revoked. We also had a number of reports concerning voting at home. We tried to investigate those situations. There were several attempts to damage the seal of the ballot box. One of those was damaged, and the Commission immediately sealed a new one, and the voting process was not disrupted. And just like I mentioned, one observer's certificate was revoked because he was drunk. We also received several reports about voting at home before the end of the period that members of the Commission did not arrive. But what we were happy about that sometime later, we received their complaints were withdrawn because the Commission came to the voters. But of course, we were trying to talk to the commissions in each individual case. But the most memorable story is that when members of the electoral committee went to a voter and they could not find him home, and then when they called him, it turned out that he was planting pine trees. Then the commission members and brought the voter home. He had a chance to vote, and then he was taken back to continue planting trees. So I would like to thank all the institutions which helped us in the entire process of the police has stepped up the security, patrolled, and promptly responded to our calls, investigated situations, recorded some violations of external advertising. And I would also like to thank all the other institutions which helped us, advised us, carried out various monitoring. I would like to thank the White Gloves organization, the Riflemen's organization, and based on the experience of these elections and previous elections, we also prepared an instruction for electoral commissions of how to behave in extraordinary situations. And yesterday, in 3 polling stations, there was a power blackout, so some of them used electric generators, the others had to use laptops, and voting process was not interrupted thanks to that. To conclude, I would like to express my special gratitude to members and staff of our all commissions. We had some 15,000 of those. I would like to thank for their sincere and smooth work and mobilization. I am grateful to election observers for observing the process and providing comments. All the reports received will be assessed, complaints will be investigated. I would also like to thank the media and police officers because the reports that we received last night show that they did a great job. Thanks to the media for informing about the elections. We are also grateful to the interpreters of Lithuanian Sign Language who helped us spread the message about the elections. And I'm also extremely grateful to the voters who chose to come and vote on such a hot and beautiful day, and they took part in the elections. So I'm calling each and every one to come to the elections and be very active in the European Parliament elections so that we have our representatives who would vote a large majority of our voters. So each time in participating in the elections is participation and contribution to building our state. And it also, when you take part in the European elections, it also contributes to building your European Union, and it predetermines the future, not our own future, but the future of our children as well. So I'm now prepared to answer the questions. Jūratė Skirita, BNS, I would like to ask why the seals were damaged. What was the purpose of damaging those seals? Were there attempts to open the ballot box? Well, I was told a story that the person was not even a voter from that polling station. He was simply a resident in that area. He entered the polling station, smashed the polling the ballot box and said, "This is my this is how I swear," and then and just left. In one case, the observers believed that there was their seal placed on top. So this is what I know. You have been working for many years in the election process. Do you see any progress? Well, at least we haven't heard about any attempts to buy votes, which is quite the case during the elections. So what would be your take, from the type of perspective? Are we becoming better, improving? Is the organization process more smooth? Or our voters are becoming more conscious? I believe that our voters are more conscious, and based on the reports that we have received, most of the voters are more conscious. That is true. And I believe that presidential elections and the elections for European Parliament and the referendums, I think that represents much lower share of attempts to bribe people and to buy those votes. So this is, I believe, is the situation we have now. In case you have no more questions, I'm grateful for this celebration of our statehood, and a week later we'll start early voting on Tuesday, and the main voting day is again on Sunday. I see one more. I'm not a journalist, but I would like to ask Roberta Šaknickas from Ireland. I received some complaints from people who voted in presidential elections that they found in information. They found the ballot papers for the elections in the European Parliament. So the one family refused to vote because they believed that it was too early for them to vote in this, and they did not want the Commission to see the early vote. So maybe that was not very properly organized. Well, indeed, before the elections, we tried to send the ballot papers 1 month in advance. And this was a coincidence that we could not send, the ballot papers for the second poll. So we had sent it later and together with the European election ballot papers. But the ballot papers were of different colors, and you can take one out without taking out the other. So we expected that this would lead to fewer mistakes. As for the return of ballot papers, it takes longer time. So this is why I chose to send them out by the same envelope so that we would receive more answers and more votes. I think this, when it comes to trust, in the second poll, we always circulate black and white copies because nobody could be able to deliver such an amount of those ballot papers on time, so those ballot papers, they differ by color, by the thickness of paper. So, if we cannot trust our staff in diplomatic representations, so probably that would be hard to trust even anyone else. So I believe that in the future we should probably communicate more that voters have to be have to be trust and then to vote believing in their state.